So what happened to our language? You probably haven't noticed it, but about 80 to 100 years ago, there was a fundamental change in the way we use language. Let me show it to you. This is pretty standard business speak, circa 2005. We're addressing challenges by accelerating our business plans to strengthen our balance sheet, optimize our global footprint, and deliver more great products faster. It's Bill Ford Jr. on Ford Motor Company. This is Henry Ford on the same company. I'm going to democratize the automobile. When I'm through, everybody will be able to afford one, and about everybody will have one. This is company building speak. You see the difference? When I first noticed this, I really thought I was onto something. I mean, why had all the clarity and power disappeared from business communications? And where did all this corporate doublespeak come from? And didn't this wave of nonsense have to have some pretty profound strategic consequences? Well, George Orwell had this realization before I was born, 1946 to be precise, in his essay Politics and the English Language. A man may take to drink because he feels himself to be a failure, then fail all the more completely because he drinks. It is rather the same thing that is happening to the English language. It becomes ugly and inaccurate because our thoughts are foolish, but the slovenliness of our language makes it easier for us to have foolish thoughts. This is why Amazon places such an importance on writing as a strategic process. Full sentences are harder to write. They have verbs. The paragraphs have topic sentences. There's no way to write a 6-page, narratively structured memo and not have clear thinking. I think Mr. Bezos is being a little kind here. I think the truth of the matter is that there's no way to hide sloppy thinking in a 6-page, narratively structured memo. So here's the result of that kind of thinking and discipline. This was Amazon's launch goal, their stated goal for Kindle when they launched. Every book ever written in every language available in anywhere in the world in under 30 seconds. Of course, this goal is probably impossible to reach, but you always know which way it is, which way to head. This kind of honesty, clarity, and specificity is how you use language when you want to get things done. So why isn't all writing this clear? Well, clear writing requires clear thinking. And as you may have noticed, thinking is hard. But there's something else also. And again, George Orwell got to it before me. Political language, and with variations, this is true of all political parties, from conservatives to anarchists, is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind. It's not a war, it's a police action. It's not an attack, it's a preemptive strike. We're hitting them back first. In a more honest age, the Department of Defense used to be called the War Department. And consider the naming of the Patriot Act. If you argue against it, does it mean that you aren't patriotic? And business has plenty of politics of its own. It used to be, people got fired, and then they got laid off. Then companies downsized, then they right-sized. And if you're in a white-collar job, most of the time people don't even resign anymore. They just leave to pursue other opportunities. So the upshot of all of this is it's getting harder and harder to be clear, which might be fine if you're a politician. But if you're a person trying to get things done, it's not so much. And this applies to all communications, whether they are written or spoken. Have you noticed any of this in your work or your life? What do you think this means for your career, for the health and effectiveness of our organizations and our society? If we can't communicate clearly about our problems and come to terms, how can we expect to solve them? Okay, I know this is about writing, which means there's not supposed to be any math, but stay with me. This equation, audience plus message equals action, is a tool that, if you use it, will instantly improve all of your communications. Be it a subject line, only email, a speech, a presentation, a novel, absolutely everything can be analyzed this way. Ultimately, it's all about the action. A great message isn't great because it conforms to an arbitrary set of rules. It works because it moves your audience to your desired action. If you're a panhandler, you want your audience to give you money. If you're a writer of Greek tragedy, you want your audience to feel a tremendous emotional release called catharsis. If you're a comedian, you're after the laugh. Everybody who attempts to communicate wants a person to take some action, even if that action is as simple as the person feeling better about themselves or a situation. So if you want to get better at getting people to take action, the only way to do it is to get better at creating and crafting messages. And there's another name for that. It's called writing. Every message has three components: logic, emotion, and authority. This tool, known as the rhetorical triangle, has been available to humanity since it was discovered by Aristotle in 384 BC. If this is the first time you're hearing of it, I think one of your teachers owes you an apology and a refund. And just so I don't put too fine a point on it, when it comes to writing education in the United States, I believe the emperor has no clothes. By the time the average person completes a bachelor's degree, they've had the benefit, or maybe harm, of over 1,700 hours of direct instruction in their native language. Now, think about the quality of the average college graduate's writing. I can analyze the reasons for this at length and may do so in another video, but since it's not going to help you improve your writing or your morale, I'm going to move along. But I do want to add that improving your writing is pretty easy once you correct your thinking about the task. Thinking influences behavior, which influences results. With most aspects of performance, people try to change their behavior and either have a very hard time or little success. The highest leverage thing you can do is change the way you think. But with writing education, it's even worse, because all anybody ever seems to focus on is the result, the words on the page. It's very inefficient, and it makes for a long and sloppy feedback loop. This gets to the heart of what I do. When someone constructs a not-so-great message, it's because they think it's the right thing to do. And if you can unpack that error and help them see that there's a better way to think about it, the periods and the participles and all the rest really just fall into place. And when you can do that in real time, in the context of a person's work, the change is profound and almost instantaneous. But back to the triangle. Logic includes the facts and arguments that you bring to bear. Authority is the inherent trustworthiness of you as a writer or speaker. If I'm giving medical advice, it's going to be easier for me to convince you, move you to action, if I'm a doctor. If I'm not a doctor, my logic is going to have to be impeccable, and I'm going to have to borrow my authority from someplace else, probably by citing facts. 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Trident to their patients who chew gum. The Surgeon General recommends, that kind of thing. An emotion is an appeal to the not logical parts of the psyche. This is what the vaccination scare is about. Humanity is clearly better off if things like polio, measles, mumps, and rubella are stamped out forever. But even the suggestion that there is some risk to your child creates a powerful emotional response. So powerful that it can cancel out the authority of the speaker and cause logic to break down. And please understand, I'm not talking about the medicine here. I'm talking about messages and how they work. More likely for business, emotion can be fear or greed. Let me give you an example. Fear is I'm going to lose money or status, and greed is I could make a lot of money or get a promotion. Here's another example. You're my audience, and I want you to take advantage of my coaching because I believe it will make your life and the world a better place. But you, probably suspicious of my authority on this topic because I am offering a service in exchange for money. So I'll borrow a little authority. A survey of 120 major American corporations conclude that in today's workplace, writing is a threshold skill for hiring and promotion among salaried employees. I'm borrowing the authority of the National Commission on Writing, but by presenting this quote, I'm also appealing to someone's fear of losing their job or being passed up for promotion. The National Commission on Writing did the same thing, too, when they titled their report, Writing a Ticket to Work or a Ticket Out. You improve your career value by 50% by having better communication skills. This is also an emotional appeal, but one that appeals to greed rather than fear. So let me try and hit all 3 points of the triangle. As you may have noticed, organizations are made up of people, more specifically, other people, which means that your ability to be effective is limited by your ability to communicate. Perhaps that's why Warren Buffett has said, you improve your career value 50% by having better communication skills. Now we're getting somewhere. We've got logic, emotion, and authority all working together, and in what feels like the right proportions. So let's apply these concepts to a variety of messages designed to get the same audience to take the same action. A panhandler is trying to get you and I, and anyone else who walks by, to give him money. Now, I don't mean to make light of anyone's plight, but this example is excellent because we all understand it. We are the audience. We have at times been persuaded or not been persuaded by these kind of messages. And we understand that the stakes are real. Even if the panhandler in question is a con man, this message determines whether or not he gets paid. Homeless. Anything helps. While anybody on the side of the road begging creates an emotion, at least in me, this appeal is dominated by logic. It's just the facts. Homeless and hungry. Can you please help? Need miracale. This to me is sadder, more of an appeal to emotion, and the misspelling, for me, increases the feeling of pathos. But it might be affected. He might just be lying. Many people who ask for money on the street do. Help. I need money for weed. This has a lot of authority, and a special kind of authority. It has the authority of truth. It can be dangerous or socially unacceptable to tell the truth, but it has its own inherent and powerful authority. And it evokes an emotion in me, a little laughter, but also gratitude for just coming out and saying it. Bills larger than $50 will not be accepted after 9 p.m. It's a fool's errand to analyze humor. This is logic that goes awry in an unexpected, enjoyable way. I mean, it's often riskier to use humor because it can be easily misinterpreted. But I think, as I look at this guy has some authority because he's confident enough to make a joke. And lastly, genius. This has the emotion baked into the logic at a deeper level, and the authority of being the one asking the question. how do I feel about myself or my gender if I don't give money? How do I feel if I'm walking by with my date? How do I feel if I'm walking by with the guys? So where would you locate this on the triangle? There's not a right or a wrong answer, but thinking about this question will make you a more powerful communicator. How would you ask for change? Take a few minutes to come up with one or two, and then see what you noticed about the exercise. See what lessons you can draw from this to apply to your own persuasive messages. So what is the process of writing? This might seem simple, but it's not a trivial question. And if you want to get better, it's an important question to ask. Most people aren't trained to want to face the process of re-understanding a subject they already know. One must obtain not just literacy, but deep involvement and re-understanding. You already know how to write and construct messages to get what you want. You've been learning how to do this since before you could talk. A baby cries, so the baby can get the bottle. This is the Oxford English Dictionary. It's the best dictionary ever made and the single greatest work of collaborative scholarship in history. And in every sense of the word, And every sense of the word writing in the best dictionary ever written has something to do with typing a character or scrawling them on paper or chiseling characters in stone, making a physical artifact that somebody can read. And I don't think this is a very useful way for a writer to think about writing. Again, it's too much of a focus on the results. If we push farther up the chain and work with the thinking that gets us the results, we get a better outcome. Writing is the entire process by which we discover what we're trying to say. And discover is important here. This includes having a conversation, taking a walk, taking a nap, doing research, going for a run or a walk so you can take your mind off it so you can come back to it fresh again. Writing is the process of creating messages. So I think everyone, for better or worse, is a writer, and that you can write without ever touching a keyboard or putting pen to paper. Because of this deficiency with the word writing, I use the word messaging a lot. But it's something of a blodge. Whatever you call message development. See, doesn't that just sound, crooked or made up and crappy? But whatever you call it, your problems with writing might have nothing to do with writing. Writing is monotasking. But the whole of the modern world is trying to interrupt and distract you. In fact, a study by Priority Management found that the average manager is interrupted every 8 minutes. But wait, it gets worse. The Institute of Psychiatry at the University of London suggests that your IQ falls 10 points when you're fielding constant emails, text messages, and calls. This is the same loss you'd experience if you had missed an entire night's sleep. And if you've got an extra 10 IQ points to spare, bravo. I don't. And I think I'm a pretty sharp guy, but I don't want to part with one. Not even half of one.